Good morning, good evening, good day, and welcome to Drama Buds. I'm Francine, I really love K-dramas, and I'm going to spend as much time as I want talking about them. Welcome to my podcast. So hello everyone. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Black Dog, which I'm pretty sure no one has watched. I'd say like my taste in K-dramas is pretty mainstream. Like guys, I don't really watch a lot of like super, indie, whoa. Or like I watch pretty popular shows. Just not popular maybe locally, like in the Philippines locally, but it's popular, domestically in Korea or even like internationally, just not in the Philippines maybe. But like, yeah, guys, my taste is not that obscure. Okay, I watch pretty popular shows, but Black Dog, I'm pretty sure, yeah, no one, no one has really paid attention to this show, which I can kind of understand. Like, okay, my feelings for the show are a bit mixed because like the things that I liked, I really liked, but the things that I didn't, I can tell that others would hate it or would like drop the show for it. It's that kind of show. So a little background on me. Not of like how I ended up watching this show, just like, in general, if you haven't heard of this yet, if in case you missed it. So Misaeng is my favorite K-drama, right? I don't know. Maybe if you've listened to like probably any other episode of mine, you probably heard that it's kind of my favorite K-drama. It just is everything to me, And like everything that isn't a rom-com, a mystery, a thriller, anything that tries to teach me something or make me learn and reflect, anything that attempts to depict the daily lives of people in some profession or somewhere anywhere. Like if it's that kind of show, I will compare it to Missing. Like really, really. If it's not focused on romance or focused on a mystery or focused on like some creepy, eerie thriller or whatever, I'm pretty sure those are the only genres I really watch. If it's not focused on any of those, I compare it to Missing. Because if it's slice of life, Missing is the golden standard. It really is. Well, Shin PD, but Missing. Really. It is the show, guys. It's the show. So, I always say that Missing is the template that no one has followed. Like, it's given you the perfect drama, everything, great main cast, ensemble, main leads, great supporting characters, lots of, like, life lessons, symbolism, music that will, like, hurt your soul, music that, like, the moment you hear it, you know exactly what scene it's playing, what kind of scene it plays on, and, like, what you're supposed to feel, just some lighthearted moments that can, make you laugh or just, give you a breather from all the sadness that goes on. Like, it's everything. I feel like Missing is really the show that has just encapsulated, like, everything I would ever want in a K-drama ever, So as I was saying, Missing is the template that no one has followed. But I finally found a show that followed the template. And, I always say that people should follow the template because it was given to you. But maybe the reason why they didn't follow the template before was because they're too afraid to be compared to it. But Black Dog followed. And therefore, I have to compare it. And it's definitely not at the level of Missing, which is a very unfair, I don't know if it's an unfair comparison even. But it's just too good, It's just too good, honestly. So my point is, Black Dog is not at that level. And, like, the similarities, it's difficult to appreciate Black Dog objectively without comparison. But I can say that it's still good in its own way. Like, in some aspects that it differed from Misaeng, like, it improved. not improved, but like it was good in its own way. I can't say that it improved on Misaeng because there's so little to improve in a perfect show. Um, Black Dog has some good points to it. And yeah, like I think what helps it the most in my subjective, assessment of it is that I have a very soft spot for teachers, which I don't know, I'll end up talking about later probably. But yeah, that's really the core of it. And that's why it has something special to it that really is incomparable, to Misaeng, which is the gold standard, as I have repeatedly said. um, so Black Dog, subtitled Being a Teacher sometimes, but not in the official title credits. I don't know. So Black Dog is about the daily struggles of a temporary teacher as she adjusts to her new job and deals with office politics and the responsibility of handling the future of her students. So our main character is Go Hanul, played by So Hyun Jin. So she's a new temporary teacher in Daechi High School, a private school. She hasn't passed the certification exam for teachers. There are no open positions for a full-time teacher, and so she had to apply for a temporary position as a Korean teacher. Korean, the language, yes. So she used to teach at a prep school. So she's good at the actual teaching, she has the skills, but she's never worked in an organization like an actual school. So when she was hired in Daechi High School, she was assigned to the college applications department under Park Song-soon. I'll introduce her later. Though Hanul is a good teacher, she doesn't know how things work. Like just how it is working with other teachers, like how it is dealing with parents, dealing with students, dealing with everything. And also like the little things about working in an office, technically. And she's also a bit naive and idealistic. Like, the good kind. Like, yeah, of course you just want to do what's best for your students, you just want to be honest and all of this, but like there's a lot of politics involved, and just like, to work with your faculty members well, like you just want to avoid trouble for everyone's sakes. But like her being naive and idealistic, she just wants to be honest, she just wants the children to learn, she just wants to tell them like what's going on, and it's just like that's really not what your coworkers want you to do, because it'll just make an issue with the students and the parents, and no one wants to deal with that. And she's just, that kind of naive at the moment. And she's also like caught up in this nepotism accusation that kind of like isolates her from the others. Like the other temp hires, there was this rumor that she was a nepotism hire, and so like all the other people that were like being considered alongside her were just fillers. Like she was really the choice all this time. So, essentially like while these other temp workers had to work so hard to get their position here, like, oh, she just was a shoo-in because she had a connection or she had a relative in the school, something like that. Just an accusation, of course. So at first, at the start of the show, she's just preoccupied with surviving in the school and finding ways to make herself a permanent teacher. Like not in a nasty, like, oh, I want to get ahead of the competition kind of way, but just, whatever little ways she can assert herself and build her reputation and her career in the school. And then she grows and she learns that it's more than just a job. Like it's a role she has to fulfill for her students, and she has to become a teacher. So who is there to guide her in that journey? We have Park Song-soon, played by Ramiran. So Miss Park is the head of college applications, and she's a very experienced Korean teacher as well. She's gruff a bit. She's very outspoken, and she's well respected in the school. And as the department head of college applications, she's constantly dealing with desperate students, angry parents, demanding faculty members who, have their own agenda for their own departments, especially like the senior class group. How do I explain it? Like the class of homeroom teachers for seniors. Like, I don't know why they have so much beef with each other. Let me think about that. In general, like the head of senior class group is kind of like, I don't know, not a slime ball, but he's not as like morally upright. Would I say morally upright? But yeah, like the kind of fairness that Miss Park wants to give to her students. Like, okay, she wants to be as fair as possible. Like, as college applications head, like, you can choose to, make programs and classes that, like, prioritize the top students, like, advanced classes to, help them study and, like, get a higher acceptance rate. But, like, she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be as fair as possible. She wants all students to have the opportunity to learn and to get good grades and get, and build like a solid application for college. And she doesn't want students to be prepping or to pay for prep schools. Like, that's a big thing in Korea. After class prep schools where they, essentially beef up your, your resume, your college application. But like, that's expensive, and not all students have the resources or the supportive parents to afford prep schools. And so like college applications, the group, their advising is it's free. They're there for the exact same purpose as prep schools, to get you into the college that you want. So it's like she wants to make them more proactive so that they can be the ones to help the students, and that the students don't have to shell out money just to get into a college, because that's their job, right? So in a way, she's kind of idealistic as well. But she has like the experience and the authority to make her ideas, I guess, come true. And she inspires a lot of loyalty from the people in her team. So one member is Gohanul, of course. The other is Doyeon Woo, a popular Korean teacher, I guess, who's kind of like, I don't know, the hotshot teacher among the faculty. And then there's also Bim Young-soo, her supposed successor, who doesn't really want to take over her position because like he's a lot more weak-willed compared to her. So like she's also struggling with the idea of like, though she wants to prioritize herself and her family at times, because she's so devoted to her job and her students, that she doesn't get to focus on her own child and her family and their future. Like, though she wants to have more time for that, like, who's going to take over for her? And like, let's say Bae Myung-soo takes over for her. Like, he's a lot more weak-willed, like super weak-willed compared to her. And like, their position is so precarious because it seems like all the faculty members, like everyone wants to come after college applications because like their school isn't doing well in terms of like the acceptance rate. And so everyone blames them, but they just keep trying their best. And like, someone needs to fight for them. Someone needs to be on their side. And like, that's why she's so vital to the survival of their department, because she is strong enough to defend them, despite their lackluster results for the past how many years. Okay. I would introduce the other two, but like, they really are supporting characters. Honestly, even Miss Park feels like a supporting character. She doesn't feel like, she is the second most important character, but barely. I don't know. I'll talk about that later. Okay. So, I mentioned earlier that I cannot help but compare this to Misaeng, right? And so, in this portion, I will talk a lot about Misaeng. So if you haven't watched that show, or if you haven't listened to my podcast about it, go watch the show. It's the best. And if you have watched the show but you have not listened to my podcast, hello, it's right there. It's episode 2. It is the show that started, well, not, yeah, I think my desire to talk about that show nonstop started this podcast. So you should probably go back there and, my Just feel the energy of someone who's so excited to talk about her favorite show. Okay, so I found it impossible to not compare this to Misaeng. First of all, the most obvious comparison is Gohanul and Jangore, the protagonists of Misaeng, played by Im Shi-wan. They're both pitiful protagonists who find themselves in temporary jobs through a connection, but not really. And they have a rocky start with their mentor because their mentor doesn't like people who get things through connections. And then they eventually grow and learn through their struggles and with the guidance of the people around them. Big difference is that Gohanul is actually quite competent at the start of the show. At least she actually knew what she was getting into when she applied for this job. Meanwhile, Jangore was just truly a fish out of water, like he had no experience in this. He just needed a job. Gohanul's backstory is more like straightforward tragic. Like, spoiler alert, even though it's, the first few minutes of the first episode, she wanted to become a teacher because when she was in high school, her class got into a bus accident and her homeroom teacher, who was apparently a temp teacher, they didn't know, her homeroom teacher saved her from that bus right before it exploded. So I don't know, she was inspired by his selflessness and wanted to become a teacher. So yeah, immediately very tragic. Meanwhile, Jangore's backstory is like, it's low-key tragic. It's not like, whoa, someone did die in Jangore's backstory. His father died, and because his father died and he had to like help his mom out by working part-time jobs, he couldn't study for Baduk as much and practice for the tournaments, and then like that's why he couldn't succeed in Baduk. So I guess, yes, there is a tragic thing there, but it's more like, one thing led to the other, not like just one big sad thing happened. It's like, yeah, Gohanul's teacher died and she felt grateful for him and also sorry, and like she stuck by the side of his widow his wife, who we left behind all these years, and became very close to her just by accompanying her and being by her side while she was lonely all these years and stuff. Like, yeah, okay, sad, but like sad immediately, straightforwardly sad. Meanwhile, Django is more like, it's just like it's just a chain of events that are very sad and led to, one international. Okay, point is, yeah. It's straightforward tragic versus like low-key tragic. And I don't know. I guess like the most important thing that they have in common is that they survive. Like that's their goal. Their goal is just to survive, right? I mean, like, did Jangore aspire to be like, to learn how to be a salesman? Well, obviously, yeah, he had to. But like, I don't know. I guess they just survive. Not by being the best at what they do. Like, Jangore didn't end up like being one of the best salesmen. That's why he survived in the company. Which he did not survive in the company. Just so you know. And Gohanul didn't become like the best teacher ever, but they survived not by being the best, but by learning about the system while still sticking to their principles. Like, in many ways, they were able to help people around them, not by changing, not by adapting entirely, but by sticking to their guns, sticking to like what they know, to what they believe is right, and inspiring others through that. Others who have been, I guess, consumed by the system or who feel helpless because no one is lending a helping hand and stuff. Like, by being themselves, by sticking to their own ideals and principles, they were able to help people through that darkness. Yes, I can think of a specific incidents in both characters. So yeah. I guess another difference in terms of protagonists is Misaeng has 4 protagonists that are kind of in the same position or same point in life. Like, new hires that are a little bit lost, that are, immature, that have not lived complete lives yet and don't understand that. Meanwhile, Gohanul is alone. Like, so much of the show focuses on her, and that's why it's so slow, because it really does focus so much on her and the things going on around her that it does drag. And I'll talk about that later. Okay. I have to compare, of course, Miss Park and Mr. O from Misaeng, played by Lee Sung-min. Okay, similarities. They're both gruff but warm. And they inspire loyalty from their team members because of their attitude, despite how difficult it is to work with them sometimes. Like, despite, how idealistic they are, or how straightforward, hot-headed, outspoken, even if it doesn't help them, like, in terms of promotions, in terms of their career in general, like, they still want to stay by the side of their bosses because they inspire that loyalty. Like, as I was writing the description of Miss Park earlier, I realized, damn, these are the same things I wrote for Mr. O. And they also have a similar, like, starting relationship with their new hire, that, they're initially harsh, but then they end up helping in the growth of their mentee and stuff. But the big difference for me, I don't know if this is what everyone who has actually watched the show felt, but I felt like the bond between Jangure and Mr. O was much stronger than the bond between Gohanul and Miss Park. I'm not even entirely sure about this. Like, was I just not paying attention, or like, did I not? Were the intervals between the episodes? Because I took many breaks while watching this because I was just really busy. Like, did that affect, like, my viewing experience, that I wasn't able to piece together their emotional journey as, like, a mentor-mentee relationship type, that I didn't feel like they were actually close and vital to each other's growth? Like, Gohan experiences struggles a lot, actually, but she's able to overcome most of them without Miss Park's help. Like, I can only... I mean, I guess you could also say that about Mr. O and Jangure. But I don't know, I felt like, I guess, okay, maybe it's because I felt like Jangure was more helpless. Like, he really knew nothing and had no one on his side. He had no skills, no experience whatsoever. All he had was, like, Mr. O's, like, gruff encouragement. Or, like, this feeling that he wanted Mr. O to teach him, to help him. Meanwhile, Gohanul, I feel like in the work itself, in the teaching, like, she was fine. She just didn't know how things worked. And so she needed a little bit of guidance every now and then. But, like, I think she would have survived nonetheless just by skills and intellect alone. And that's why I feel like they're less close, because she didn't need Miss Park as much. Okay. Another thing that maybe that's why I felt a bit iffy about, like, oh wow, suddenly they're so important to each other. Most of the development of the relationship is shown towards the end of the show, not at the start when things were most difficult for Gohanul. So it felt very abrupt when they were portrayed as, like, super close, and, like, Gohanul is so grateful for everything that Miss Park has done for her. It's like, what has Miss Park done for you, really? I mean, she encouraged you a little bit, but you kind of had your own path without her. And, okay, I mentioned this earlier, but in general, Miss Park had a lot less screen time than Gohanul and Mr. O. So I feel like I was less invested in her and in them as a relationship. So aside from the comparisons to Misaeng, okay, another thing that I could, like, criticize about the show is the pacing and the focus, I guess. It's very slow. Like, very, very slow. Like, I have a very high tolerance for slow shows. I love slow shows. Most of the things I enjoy are pretty slow. However, if even I can say something that, if even I can say that something is really, really slow, that even I wasn't super, like, happy with it, okay, that might be too much for others. The thing is, like, it's slow and it's mostly just focused on Gohanul. Like, the thing with Misaeng was, I said I was done with comparing it to Misaeng, but, but alas, we're here. The thing with Misaeng is that it was also slow, yes, I guess. But there were 4 protagonists. So there was always something going on with different people involved, and then sometimes their stories tie together, but, they end up going on their own journeys that are kind of dealing with different circumstances, but the core of it is the same, that they don't know how to survive in this world with the people that they're working with. Like, that core problem or theme is there in all 4 of their stories, and that's why, like, you're watching them grow alongside each other, and you just kind of shift back and forth on who you focus on at the moment. But that meant that there was always something going on, even if it was moving slowly. It was just like the pacing was just so right. However, with Black Dog, it's just Gohanul. And so it's like so much of the show focuses on her that I felt like they had to drag out so many storylines and conflicts and issues. And like, honestly, they could have like shortened this show to 12 episodes maybe. They didn't have to stretch out like the first 2/3 of the show. But oh well. And okay, speaking of like other cast, the supporting cast wasn't that strong. Like, okay, sure. They can have only 1 protagonist. Yeah, it's not normal to have 4 protagonists usually. But like, have a strong supporting cast, I guess. And Black Dog, not so much. Like, the main team, college applications, they were good, likable people. They weren't nasty to Gohanul for any reason. Like, they were okay. And honestly, it felt like she had a stronger bond with, Bae Myung-soo and Do Yeon-woo than with Miss Park. I don't know. And I don't know. They weren't that strong. They didn't catch that much attention. But that might also be because, like the relationship of Miss Park and Gohanul, the Mr. Bae and Do Yeon-woo, they had some moments and some like aspects of their character focused on for a while, but only towards the end of the show. So yeah, my point is like, we didn't really get to know them throughout the show, just like little by little, and it wasn't enough to sustain my attention or my interest. So yeah, by the time that they were getting some character development towards the end, it was too late, There wasn't enough time to really flesh it out and really get invested in them. So there. And yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but like, plot lines were really, really dragged out, in the first 2/3 of the show. And it was boring. Even I can say something is boring, despite like my, enjoyment of slow shows. Like, come on, man. I am your audience. Okay, another thing that was a little weird about the show that I really didn't like much is that sometimes it's so over dramatic. Like, sometimes they had these plot lines and they were just blowing things out of proportion. Like, is it really that serious? Like, do you really need, a super over dramatic, long, slow-mo shot with intense war music while everyone is walking down a corridor? Like, come on, that's a little ridiculous. But okay, the thing that the show does is that it pokes fun at it at times. Like, yeah, they have that super over dramatic scene, and then when they actually start talking about it, it's like they realize this situation is so ridiculous. And then a little bit later, like, even if they've already poked fun at it and called it ridiculous and stupid and a non-issue, like, they realize something else, and then there's some sort of lesson or deeper moral conflict that's in that incident. Like, okay, for example, there was this correction in an exam, or not correction, but like, some students were saying that this was a possible answer based on what they studied in their lessons. And like, most of the other teachers are like, just ignore them. We already have the answer key. We're the teachers here. We know what we're talking about. But, yeah, it was super ridiculous. And so everyone just like dropped it and stopped caring about it. And then like, when Gohan will analyze it further, read more books, and like talk to the students, ask them, what did your teachers tell you, or where did you get the idea that this could be the possible answer? She realized that, maybe the students are right. But then, like, all the other teachers were saying, don't accept it as a correction. Don't listen to them. Just say that this is the answer. We won't discuss this any further. But, like, her conscience couldn't handle it. And it felt wrong. That it's like, these students, we teach them something, and then we say, and then when they apply that knowledge, we tell them, no, that's, you're overthinking. You're, just focus on what was supposed to be on the test. Don't think ahead of the lesson and stuff. It's like, what was the point of teaching them that advanced knowledge? Like, what was the point of, what's the point of letting them, of using this assessment to test their knowledge, and then letting them use that knowledge, even if it's not what we specifically asked for, and then saying that they're just wrong because that's not what we're looking for. It's like, it just felt wrong, and so that was and like, they had to dismiss the students and lie and say that that it was just wrong, that they weren't considering it at all. But, like, grammatically, it was right. This was the Korean language exam. Grammatically, it was right. It could be considered. Okay, and, like, it's hard to say that, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, we'll consider your answers, because, one, the grades were already submitted, and so, like, if they say there's a correction in the exam, all the faculty have to redo their grades and stuff. Like, it's a big hassle to everyone. And, like, whoever says it or admits it will, of course, be attacked by all the other faculty. But if they don't accept it, a lot of students will get a lower grade, which is super important at the time because they're all seniors and they're applying to college. And, if the students complain, the parents will also complain. It's like, you're going to lose no matter what. But what was most important was, of course, teaching the students and allowing them to use their critical thinking, right? And so eventually, Gohan did admit that they were wrong, or, like, they were going to consider the answer because the students were right. Okay, so, see, like, it was super over dramatic. It was something about collective. Okay, here's the English nerd coming out, but, like, something about collective nouns. And, like, I don't know, something about collective nouns. I thought I was going to explain that further, but then I realized I forgot the exact answer. And they called it, like, the banana incident. It was super dramatic. Right, the banana. And they would refer to this incident through the years as the banana incident. It's so ridiculous that it's like, I laughed at it. And then I realized, oh my God, they're going to take this banana incident seriously. And then they didn't. And then there was a lesson. So my point is, like, the show does well in, like, poking fun at itself and then doubling back on it and realizing that there's something deeper to the issue than just some petty high school students wanting higher grades. Okay? And also, like, regarding all the incidents in the school, like, all the various things that happened that are like, gosh, is this such a big deal? Like, these kids' grades, or, like, your position in school, or, like, getting this program, like, starting this after-school class, getting approval for this and that. Like, is it that much of a big deal if we create an advanced class for the top student that will only, like, prioritize the best and, leave the others behind? Like, is it that much of a big deal? Like, everyone else does that. Okay, in defense of the show, guys, this is what Misaeng taught us. Okay, this is Misaeng's, like, big lesson. Like, everyone has their own baduk game. Just that one quote. I always remember that. Like, every time you think something doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, always remember that to someone, this is their grand scheme of things. Like, in Misaeng, it's just the corporate world, and so it's easy to say. It's just like, oh my gosh, you're just making money for your company. Is it that big of a deal if you don't make the sale, or if you make this little mistake on your report or whatever? But it's like, that could affect, someone's job or someone's promotion. That could affect someone's, I don't know, the livelihood, what they use to feed their family, what they earn to support their children's education or their hospital bills or whatever. Like, to someone, this is their world. This is the world that they live in. This matters to them. And so, what is the grand scheme of things? World changing events? But if someone's world is their job, their family, their hobbies, their skills, their health, their own selves, like, if that is their world, then does this not matter to them as much as like the world changing, the global events or whatever? So, like, the point is, everyone has their own badok game. Everyone has, like, the things that matter to them personally and will affect their entire life because that is their life. So, this may seem overdramatic and unimportant to others, but this is their job. These are their lives. And in the case of Black Dog, like, this is the future of their students. Those 2 points in an exam, this stupid correction about about banana being a collective noun. Like, it may seem so silly, but I don't know, those 2 points could help a child get into a college. Or getting this right would affect, I don't know, the job of someone in the faculty who will have to redo all the grades that they initially input. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, the point is, like, let's not judge people for what they deem important to them. There, okay? So, the show has its strengths. Okay? It really does. Like, I think to me, the greatest strength is the school setting. This show feels like reverse Sky Castle. Like, how Sky Castle is just, let's throw all our money at Coach Kim so that she can get freaking Yeso into what did she want? Seoul SNU Med, right? That ambitious girl. I hate Yeso. Oh my gosh, sorry, tangent. Just me talking about Sky Castle. That's one of the first few K-dramas I watched. And like, for the first how many episodes, I was just furious at these people. Just like, oh my god, I hate rich people. They're the worst. I hate rich people so much. They're so selfish and so, like, self-absorbed. But okay, Black Dog is reverse Sky Castle. Okay, that is my point. Like, college advisory, their team, it's very relevant to South Korean culture, right? Like, the big issue with college admissions and all that. And the thing is, it's reverse Sky Castle because, yeah, as I mentioned, Sky Castle is all about, like, throwing all your money and resources to beef up your child's future and be ruthless in getting them where they want to be. But Black Dog is more like, on the other side of the coin, Sky Castle never talked about the actual school and what the actual teachers do for the students. It's all about, like, how Coach Kim will, assemble the dream team of teachers that will help Yeso get perfect grades in every exam. Right? But what don't the teachers do their jobs too? Don't they teach Yeso? So Black Dog focuses on the other side of the coin and, like, what the school and the teachers do to help their students. All kinds of students, not just people like Yeso who, have the resources, the support, and the intellect to get to those, like, prestigious universities. And it also, like, Black Dog also addressed how prep schools are disadvantageous to those without money, right? Like, that's a pretty interesting thing that I honestly didn't think about. Because, like, most K-dramas just show that kids go to prep schools as if it's a fact of life that everyone goes to a prep school. But then, right, that costs more money and not everyone is rich. I don't know why that slipped my mind. In a way, this is a stronger setting than Misaeng. Right? For the first, like, this is the one thing that it really has above Misaeng for me. Because, like, the corporate, setting, not knocking on it, but I'm just saying, it's just like, schools, schools and teachers are important, like, super important to society. I don't know, I just have a very soft spot for teachers. I guess if you made it this far into the podcast, it's time for me to overshare. One of my, lost dreams, I guess, or the dreams I just decided to let go of is teaching, becoming a teacher. I don't know. I spent all my life in school, and I was just very inspired by a lot of the people that taught me, and like very grateful for everything that I have learned and experienced in my youth, I guess. I did pretty well in school. Let's leave it at that. But I did pretty well in school. And so just like, I don't know, I was just very grateful for those teachers that really made an impact on me and like gave me self-esteem, made me realize that I had potential to be great in certain things. Like, yeah, I was a big English nerd. I really loved writing and speaking. Reading not so much, but funny thing is, when I was a kid, I was like an avid bookworm. Typical kid stuff. High school musical. Harry Potter, Hieronymus Stilton, like kids books. And then I don't know, when I became a tween, I started reading fanfic and then my brain rotted. And then like now I guess I don't read much, but I still do love stories. Like, guys, I have a podcast on K-dramas. I do love stories and analyzing stories. I think that's just the manifestation of my old reading obsession, but with less attention needed because my attention span is just dead now. My point is, really loved English, really loved reading and stories and stuff. And like I had a lot of great English teachers in my time. Most of them have really like touched my heart, and despite how difficult their classes were at times, like I was just very grateful to have learned from them and survived their classes. So my point is, sorry for the oversharing, but yeah, okay, schools and teachers are important. And like, hey, if you're one of those people that think like, what teachers or whatever, like if you look down at teachers for any reason, how dare you? Rethink your life. You would be nowhere without someone teaching you. At some point in your life, any point in your life, whether it's, the teacher that taught you how to read, or the person that taught you algebra, or whatever, whoever taught you in what, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're some sort of astronaut, tech genius, whatever, like at some point in your life, you learned from someone, no matter where you are right now. And so always like, look back and be grateful for those people who actually devoted their time to helping you grow. Unless they were like, disgusting, disrespectful people. Like those kinds of teachers, yeah, freely ignore them. But for the ones who did their jobs, well enough, not everyone, of course, is perfect. Not everyone can be inspiring and amazing and life-changing. But for those who did their jobs well enough, like, appreciate them. They gave their time solely to help you. Really. Like, they could have had other jobs that, paid more probably. But they chose to be a teacher. Okay? To help the next generation grow. So let's appreciate that, please. Thank you. That is my PSA. Appreciate teachers as long as they're not disgusting or disrespectful. Thank you very much. So the main journey of Go Hanul is becoming a teacher, right? And I think that is also one of the greatest strengths of the show. Because, like, despite her shortcomings, despite her naivety and her inexperience, like, Go Hanul is a good character that you can sympathize with. Like, she's good at her job and she cares too much at times. Like, like sometimes you just have to be tough and just make those hard decisions and let it go. But she can't, okay? She cares too much at times. And are we going to, blame someone for that? Attack someone for that? I don't think so. The show kind of deconstructs her idealism and her naivety while still holding on to it, though. To keep her from becoming jaded and empty and disillusioned, because like it's her naivety, her hope, I guess, that makes her such a good teacher, because she's able to connect with her students and she's able to like reach out to them and help them reach their full potential, not just by being distant and letting them do their own things, but by really caring and trying to be there for them. So yeah, becoming a teacher is more than just the actual teaching. It's also about caring for the future of your students. All of them, not just, the best. not just the ones that are easy to support because they're good enough. They're already good, like all of her students. And that's also something that she eventually learns as the show goes on. Okay, I have to talk about episode 12, which is just the best episode in this show. By far, hands down, no questions. Okay, so before this episode, it took me ages to watch this show. Like, some episodes, I could spend like 2-3 days watching. Not because it was so boring that like I turned it off and fell asleep or anything, but because like I was just genuinely busy. But like, if I wanted to watch the show so much, I would make time for it, or I would binge it because I can't get enough of it. But not the case for this show. Everything was just so slow. I mentioned this, like, only focusing on Gohanul was kind of a miss because they just dragged everything out. And then suddenly episode 12 came. And this was the culmination of everything they had been building up to in the past 11 episodes. Like, it was the CSAT, College Scholarship Aptitude Test, the CSATs of the students, and the permanent teacher exam for Gohanul and her competitor Ji-Hee-won. So let's talk about the permanent teacher stuff first. So for the longest time, Ji-Hee-won was kind of the antagonist, because he was the one who accused Gohanul of being a nepotism hire by her uncle. However, even if he was constantly like not trying to expose her, but he was the one who started the issue and essentially led to her being excluded and attacked. Yeah. Despite that, we found out that he had been a temporary teacher for 6 years. He renewed this contract over and over again for 6 years, hoping that he could finally get a slot as a permanent teacher in the school. And he's teaching the same subject as Gohanul, and they only have one slot for a permanent teacher. So, though they were both good teachers and they did both deserve to become permanent, like, Hanul is our protagonist, but honestly, I wanted Ji-Hee-won to get the slot. Like, those 6 years, there's value in those 6 years that he spent, like, working for this school, And episode 12 was when more of his backstory and his connections to other teachers was revealed. So it was like, I really just wanted him to stay and become permanent, even if that meant like prolonging the struggle for Gohanul, or like making all her struggles this year, not worth nothing, but like amount to nothing, I guess, because she didn't get the job. Spoiler alert, neither of them got it. Because, like, their scores were so close. Like, okay, Gohanul had a higher score in the objective exam, but then when they were, like, the last 5 people with highest exam scores were chosen. Like, Ji-Hee-won just did so much better in the interview portion, which was by a panel of, like, admin and faculty. And so, like, it was subjective. So, let's say, like, the Department of Education checked who they hired and how he was hired and how he did in the exam and stuff. It's like, objectively, you could say Gohanul is better. So where did this subjective score come from? Maybe because he was already previously working here, the panel who interviewed him skewed his grades to get him hired and stuff. So it was just a very, like, dangerous situation, and like eventually the foundation owning the school decided to not hire either one of them. And so, like, they both struggled, they both wanted it so bad, but it led to nothing for both of them. So what the heck was that, And then, okay, the other main plotline until episode 12 was the CSAT of 2 students in Gohanul's homeroom class. So Gu Jaeyeon and Jin Yura. Jaeyeon was the top student. Like, he was rich. His father was not just supportive, like super supportive. He was pressuring Jaeyeon to achieve, and just very hands-on with his education. Even hands-on enough to, like, complain about his grades, or get like physics associations to check their physics exams to see, like, are they putting the right answers in the exams, because my son might get a lower grade if their info is wrong. Like, he's that hands-on. Like, he's willing to do anything to help his son's future and whatever. And yeah, he's super infamous. Like, Gu Jaehyun is infamous among the teachers because of his dad and his attitude, really. Jin Yura is the second highest student, and she's poor. Like, she has to work part-time jobs, and her parents aren't hands-on with her education because they're working as well. And like, she's studying so hard because she doesn't want to live a temporary job life. Like, she wants a permanent job to, have some financial stability, because she doesn't want to experience what she's been experiencing all her life. And that's why she's aiming for Hanguk Medical School, which is like pretty much the most prestigious medical school, I guess. So these two students have had a constant rivalry ever since they were introduced. So Jinyura hates that, Jaehyun has all these resources while she struggles so much and can only be second best. And, Jaehyun is sometimes, he's an ass. But, he changed when he heard other teachers bad-mouthing him, while Gohanul was the only one who defended him, essentially, and said that she didn't believe that he had a bad attitude or that he was hopeless and that they shouldn't bother helping him. Like, yeah, like, just to have someone who didn't see you as like a smart troublemaker was pretty encouraging for him. And he eventually became like a decent person. So both of them were in Icarus, which was the advanced class for top students that's being handled by Hanul. So Yura opens up to Hanul about her financial situation, and like, when she's about to give up on her dream of Hanguk Med School, just, maybe aim for a lower school, just whatever, as long as she can get into a med school and become a doctor and stuff. But it's Hanul who encourages her to aim high and keep trying. And though Hanul, as their homeroom advisor and their teacher in Icarus, like, she wants both of them to do well, of course, but there are some opportunities that can only be given to one person. And in the end, spoiler alert, only Jaehyun gets into med school. Like, picture this, okay? Everyone is in the faculty room. Jaehyun, Yura, Hanul, their classmates, some of the faculty, of course, the principal, the vice principal, the admin, and they all witnessed the results being revealed. So at first it was Jaehyun. Like, he made it! Yay! Everyone's happy. And then when it was Yura, when they checked Yura's results, there was just silence. And she just had to smile through it and, say, congrats, Jaehyun, it's fine, I'll just aim for another school. And then when she went out, she just cried because that's like the worst possible. I don't know, it's embarrassing, and it's also just sad. So, as we all know, I am a crier, and I cried at that moment. Because, like, when they announced the results were out, like, even I felt nervous for them. It's like, oh my gosh, are they gonna get in? Or is it enough? Is there going to be a plot twist and all that? And the thing is, like, you want them to succeed, of course. And it seems like that's the expectation. Like, I don't know. It's not just a K-drama thing. Like, I think in general, people like underdog stories, right? They like stories of people triumphing over their circumstances and their struggles, but that doesn't also always happen, right? I don't know if, like, not making people succeed subverts expectations. I don't know. I feel like I've watched a lot of those shows, but I still feel like that's not the common event. That's not what always happens. Like, people still expect more likely than the other option that people will succeed. More likely than they would fail. And so, yeah, it's just like, I was hoping that, maybe this is the typical underdog story, that Yura will also make it and that they'll succeed. But she didn't. And so what happened? What happened after that? Well, she found her way to another med school. Not as prestigious as Hanguk Med School, of course, but, it's still a med school. It will still get her to her goal, just not like at that level immediately. And so, like, the story's not over, right? Just because she didn't get it doesn't mean she has no more hope and that there's no point in working and trying anymore. Like, as long as you're alive, life keeps going. So you have to keep going. Which is, as I mentioned in my previous episode in Run On, is like my favorite message. That you just have to keep going and keep living. And your story will go on. Like, it doesn't end here. You know? Like, this is not the end of the world. Personally relatable. Won't overshare on that aspect. But yeah, like, life keeps going. And you won't, like, triumph so much over it. You'll just become like a totally new person and achieve everything far beyond what you initially wanted. Not like that, but life goes on. It's okay. So, after episode 12, there was a shift. Because, like, final exams and getting the job, usually that's the finale. Like, it felt like episode 12 was the finale in a way. But now that they've addressed those big plot points that were being built up from the very beginning, like, what comes after that? It's slightly reminiscent of, like, what becoming a teacher is like. Your job doesn't end after they graduate or after when the year ends. Like, the process of becoming a teacher doesn't just like, okay, when they graduate, congrats, you're a teacher now. It's like, Gohanel became a true teacher by staying and cultivating, like, the next batch of students. So there was this thematic shift. When she stopped focusing on, like, getting the permanent job, she just stayed as a temp teacher, sure, but now she could focus on other things, not just on herself, but really on her students. The thematic shift was less about becoming a teacher and more about becoming a teacher. Like, what is a good teacher? What is that supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? Hanel is less preoccupied with getting a permanent job. She realizes that she mostly cared about the good students, Yura and Jayon are the best of their batch. And, like, she realized that she only really focused on the good ones, the excellent students, and not about, like, the ones that are flunking or those who don't even want to go to school. Like, their future is not related to finishing school and getting a degree. So there's this new student that she focuses on Hwang Botong, a student who wants to drop out to be a webtoon artist. And so, as college advisory teachers, right, you think that everyone wants to follow that path, right? That's your basic assumption. Like, to be a college advisory, and, like, in college advisory, you assume that all your students, everyone that you're handling, wants to go to college. But what do you do for those who don't? Right? Like, what do they care about college advisory? Like, what do they care about what you're doing for them, for all the students? You can't just leave them to, like, okay, whatever, you're not in my jurisdiction, or, like, your grades won't help the acceptance rate, so do whatever you want with your life. Like, that's not right. As a teacher, like, you can't just leave them be like that. But what can you do for them that's either, like, within your jurisdiction, or, like, what can you do for those who don't care about college? It was a very interesting last 4 episodes, I guess. Like, after the emotional ride of episode 12, I finished the rest of the show in a day. Like, I woke up, I watched episode 12, not expecting anything, and then after all that happened, after me crying at 10 a.m., after that, yeah, I was just sucked in, and then I finished the rest of the show in one day. By then, like, the emotional attachments to Gohanol and all the characters were pretty much established. Like, okay, I wasn't super invested, but I did care enough about them. I wasn't super convinced by the relationships and whatever, but it's fine. And, like, in those last 4 episodes, that's when they decided to focus a bit more on the other characters and their resolutions. Like, Doyeon Woo, the hotshot Korean teacher we mentioned earlier, like, he was experiencing a slump in his career. Like, he just was kind of losing his spark, and so what do you do with that? Like, he was starting to withdraw in himself. He wasn't willing to try new things anymore, to try anything, just wanted to do his job and go home and all that. He was lost. So, like, they explored that a bit, and then Miss Spark finally caved in and, like, allowed her husband to be more proactive in his career and like decided to take care of their child more. Like she decided to take a leave of absence for a while to support his career because like he's been supporting her career all this time. Like, isn't it, fair for her to give him a shot now? Like by that time, that was the only time they really focused on like the personal lives of the other characters, which I think they should have done more, like sprinkled throughout the entire show and not just the last 4 episodes. To be honest, the ending was a little weak. Like it was rooted in Gohanul and Miss Park's relationship, which I mentioned I was not totally convinced by. But like, it's okay, I guess, because the message of the show was delivered by then. So I could just ignore that was the ending. Hey, that's kind of what I did with the ending of Misaeng as well. It's just like I kind of just ignored that whole Jordan trip at the end. Whatever. Everything was happy when when the three of them were in Mr. O's new company. Okay, we're all good. So yeah, like ending was a little weak, but it's okay. I don't think like the message of the show hinged on the ending. I think the whole journey delivered that message. So it was good enough. So there, that's pretty much the review. Oh wait, I have to mention my girl, So Yunjin. Oh yes, she is my queen of rom-coms. We all know that. I love her so much, and I was glad to see that she was taking other types of roles, and like she didn't have to depend on like being pretty or funny or quirky or having great chemistry with her partner. Like she could just act, which she can. Like, she really can, still great at crying. Though she didn't need to cry as much this time compared to another Miss O, which, 3 times in one episode is pretty crazy. I guess a little criticism was that she kind of had the same, like, face whenever she was lost or confused or whatever, which was a lot in the show, so it was a lot of the same face, but it's passable because like the moment she started speaking, all right, she's good. Like she's so good at natural delivery and like I don't know, scenes with other people like actually sounding like she's holding a conversation with someone and not just reading out lines. She's also good at like micro expressions, moving her eyes or just like, yeah, she's good. She's a good actress, really. I'm sure now she's good. So, my queen Soyeon Jin has proved herself yet again, and she didn't have to do a rom-com this time to be great. So, yes, love her. Okay, that's it for me. Honestly, I didn't think I'd be talking this much about this show because I didn't really love it all that much. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it all that much. But I did feel things, and I did cry. So that's why I decided to make an episode for it. It took me a while to really like it, and it took me forever to watch it, but like throughout the show it was sprinkled with like little heartwarming moments that kept me from fully dropping the show. I'd say it's worth watching, but it's not for most people. Like most people, it's not for most people, I'm really telling you. I just have a high tolerance for slow shows. So I could handle this, of course, but others definitely could not. But, if you have a soft spot for teachers, if you like this theme, if you like sadness, this is a show. Not a general recommendation from me, definitely. But if you can handle it, I think it's worth watching. So that's it for me. I'm tired. Cannot believe I talked this much. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.